Ms. Thornton is here today from AccessLex, and she's going to be discussing with you LSAC and CAS and more about AccessLex. So I will go ahead and let her take it away. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity and how exciting that you all have an upcoming fair. Hopefully, what I go over today, you'll be able to apply to that opportunity. So we're going to talk about some of the application aspects, just a little bit about the money aspects as well. That is really what AccessLex does, is talk about the financial aspects. But because that's a little bit more well known, we want to let you know that we do more than just that as well. But especially in this new world of how individuals will pay for law school, we want to make sure that you know that we do absolutely have those resources as well. So as mentioned, I am Taria Thornton. I serve as the Pre-Law and Diversity Initiative Director at AccessLex Institute. A long time ago, I went to law school at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. I'm an Ohioan through and through as I sit here on Ohio State's campus at the moment. But we're going to talk about just some important information to keep in mind. I will touch a little bit on the Credential Assembly Service, LSAC in general, some waivers, but again, just giving you some additional information for you to consider as we are in the midst of an application season. And if you're not currently applying, that you will apply in the near future. Now, I call this the cheesecake menu of everything that AccessLex does. There are a lot of tools and resources, but what we're hoping is that there is something that will help you along every part of this process. Again, if you're trying to find external scholarship opportunities, we have our Law School Scholarship Data Bank. If you're trying to find one-on-one free coaching from experts in this field, we have Access Connect. So again, anything that you can probably have a question about regarding law school, we have tried to create a free resource that's created by experts. So not your Reddits, not your TikToks, not your Instagram, but again, those of us who have worked in this field for a very long time. We do have this resource. I actually have some scholarships for the first time that we will be giving out, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation, but these are particular for those going into law school for autumn of 26. But I will have these scholarships each and every year moving forward, but you do need to start off by signing up for our Ask Edna platform. Edna is just an acronym for Education Network at AccessLex, and the information that we will cover today will be accessible to you at your leisure whenever it becomes more relevant to you through that Ask Edna platform. All right, and then last kind of housekeeping thing is that we put this disclaimer in all of our presentations. We're not going to talk too much about finances today, but everyone that you will interact with at AccessLex is an accredited financial counselor. So we do have a credential, and some of us have been doing this work for a very long time. So I do encourage you to ask questions. I may need a little bit of help in the chat. I think that you all may have an opportunity to unmute as well. So if you could raise your hand if that's possible, and we'll make sure you get your questions answered today. All right, so let's talk about the important aspect. So, of course, money is a top priority for a lot of people going to law school, but I always try to let applicants know that the way that you unlock the money is by having a competitive application. And we're going to focus a little bit on that today. How can you strategically approach law school admissions? Again, understanding that every piece of the process is going to help you be successful in getting admitted into a law school, but also hopefully getting those coveted law school dollars as well. So we usually say it's called like the law school admissions game. You're going to use every piece to your advantage. Think of any game you played. If you have any avid chess players, you wouldn't just use your knights in order to try to win the game. You understand that every piece on that board helps you checkmate. So that's how we're going to think about law school admissions moving forward. When you're looking at your applications, again, the way that your admissions reviewers, whether it's a large team or a small team or an individual that are looking at your applications, they are looking to see two aspects show up in your application materials. They want to know how are you showing them that you will succeed in law school, and they can see that from your transcripts, they can see that from your letters of recommendation, they can see that from your resume. All of that should be telling them how you have been historically successful. No one that I've met, and I'm actually at a law fair right now, I have not met anyone who can tell the future. So the way that they predict the future is by past behavior. So again, they're looking at all the materials to see how you can show that you've been successful. Then the second part of those application materials will show what will you add. Some of these law schools get thousands of applications, and they're trying to figure out what makes you different, what makes you unique. I'll pause to let you in on a little bit of a secret. What makes you different is that you're you. You are already a unicorn. There is not another you applying to law school. What we need to work on is being able to articulate how your lived experience, whether that is personal, whether that is professional, whether that is academic, how your experiences make you different than all the other people who are applying. And again, you are already different. So think about all the parts of your application that show how you can succeed and also show what you will add. All right, so let's talk about the law school application components. I'm going to delve a little bit into some of the financial aspects of it, right? So these are the pieces of the application from a financial lens that you want to look at. So right now, even though you've heard things happening and rumblings of how a standardized test may be going away and may no longer be required. But as of right now, law school still requires some standardized tests in some form or fashion to be admitted into most law school programs. And that costs, right? So the graduate record examination is still 220 and the LSAT has increased to the 248 that you see there. And I'm going to give you a little bit of stats on the two different tests in just a second because they are very different from a structural standpoint, but from a cost perspective, they're pretty similar. And then there are related costs. So whether you choose to do a commercial prep or you do something free, that is through LSAC's Law Hub. There are free tests that you can prepare with. If you would like more than the free, you will have to pay for those additional tests for you to prepare. But just think about all the resources that you can tap into on campus, or if you're a part of a law society or a law fraternity, there may be some opportunities for you to save money there. But let's talk about these application expenses in that navy column that you see towards the center of the screen. When we say up to $90 each, we're talking about the application expenses. I actually had a student today tell me that one of the law schools that she's interested in applying to is $150 to apply. That is very high. Now, some law schools do not have an application fee whatsoever to apply. But again, we know statistically, the more schools that we apply to, the more opportunities we have to be admitted. And again, that is going to cost unless you're eligible for waivers. We're going to talk about some waivers in just a second. Then you have the credential assembly service. Well, number one question I get about the credential assembly service is, can I waive out of it? The answer is no. You do have to pay that fee, but it essentially does all the things that are in the name, right? It's going to assemble all the parts of your application. It's where your transcripts are going to be sent. It's where you send your personal statements. It's where your recommenders send their letters of recommendation. So it assembles all the parts of your application. But again, just to use that service is $215. Then once you say, okay, I know I want to apply to school A, B, C, and D, each time you send your materials, your complete application packet to those institutions, it is $45. So again, there's just the use of the service, use of the credential assembly service, and then to send your materials to schools, it's $45. But that is separate. So let me emphasize that that is separate from the law school's application fee. So the credential assembly and the credential assembly reports are what you pay to the Law School Admission Council. The application fee, if there is one, is what you pay directly to the law school. But let's pause and talk about waivers. There are waivers that you can get from the law school. Sometimes all you have to do is to go to a law fair. So I hear that you're having a graduate and professional fair. So sometimes all you have to do is have a conversation with them and ask them what the process is for their waivers, and they may give them to you very freely at that law fair. Some of them may say that you need to email them for a waiver. Some of them may say that it's based off of financial circumstances. So every law school might be a little bit different, but that is a potential way to save some money on the overall application expenses. Now, the Law School Admission Council has their own waivers that you can tap into, and it is also based on financial circumstances. And they have two different tiers. The highest tier gives you an opportunity to take the LSAT for free twice. It covers the credential assembly service for you, and it gives you 6 of those credential assembly service reports for free. So you get to apply for free to 6 schools. Now, that doesn't cover the application fee if there is one, so that's separate. But usually, if you're eligible for a LSAC waiver, the law school will also give you a waiver, but you need to tap into those two different resources separately. Then the second tier essentially cuts those things into half, right? So you get one opportunity to take the LSAT for free. It will still cover the credential assembly service for you, but you get 3 of those credential assembly service reports for free. Now, they give you some other extra benefits too, but those are pretty much the highlights of each. And then, of course, you see that there is a school deposit, more commonly known as a seat deposit. So hopefully you get the letter of admission from the law school that you really want to attend. In order to secure your spot at that school, you will need to pay a seat deposit. Okay. Let's just talk about again the components of the application, the law school application. They're going to look at your undergraduate GPA. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. They will look at whatever standardized tests you take, and then they're going to look at all the other parts of your application. It really is a holistic review of your application, and all of this helps you get into the running for scholarships as well, whether they be merit-based or they may be based on some other circumstance. When it comes to the undergraduate GPA, let's just start with the title. That's exactly what they're looking at. Even if you go on to get a master's degree or another professional degree, because the only degree that's required prior to going to law school is an undergraduate degree, that is what they're going to look at. And I know that sometimes makes people uncomfortable because perhaps we've had some challenges in undergrad. So they're going to look at the overall GPA, and that's if it's a 4.0, a 2.0, anything above, below, in between, they're going to look at that. But again, it's because they're trying to just standardize the process. That's what they're going to look at. They're going to look at your trajectory. You know, were you someone who chose a major that was well suited for you early on and it was just smooth sailing? Or maybe you were someone who thought you wanted to be pre-med, took a couple of hard science classes and realized that this was not the option for you. So they're going to look at your trajectory. And then last but not least, they're going to look at courses. I hope it is widely known at this point that you do not have to be a political science major to go to law school, but they want to know that you have taken challenging courses because law school is a challenging program. So they want to see that you have taken things that are going to challenge you academically. With standardized tests, right now, the two big players in the game are the law school admission that from a strategic standpoint, you'll want to know which law schools are accepting which tests and what those medians are for each one of those tests. Now that 509 information that comes from the American Bar Association, that will list for a good amount of law schools their GRE or graduate record examination median LSAT or median score as well. And of course, that LSAT median has been on there for a very long time. So again, just think about that. For some of you, you might be thinking about a joint degree program, so MBA and JD or MPA and JD. So it may make sense for you just to take the graduate record examination, and that way you can apply to 2 programs with just that one test. But just keep in mind about how you can do that strategically. You have wonderful resources at your institution. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to set up an advising appointment and think about strategically what might be best for you. The only other thing that I want to talk to you all about, because sometimes folks will say, well, I didn't do as great on the LSAT as I had hoped. I'll switch over to the GRE. That's not how that works. So once you take the LSAT, you cannot unring that bell. They will continue to look at that LSAT score. So maybe if you haven't taken that test, you think about which one you've done better on for practice tests and think about the schools you want to apply to. what you want to do, maybe from, do you just want to get the JD? All of those considerations on whether or not you take one test versus the next. There's also another text called JD Next that's in the field. A very small number of schools currently take JD Next, but it's an opportunity for people who are looking for an alternative to a traditional standardized test. It's more learning based than the GRE or LSAT. So again, if you have questions about that, let me know. Here's just a quick synopsis of the two tests. Remember, I told you structurally they are different and you will prepare for them differently. So again, whatever prep you're going to do, whether it's commercial, whether it's books, whether it's something that you may tap into because you're a part of an organization, just know that you'll need to think about the preparation aspects. We talked about the cost for each test. The cost to prepare is also very different. The GRE is administered by an organization called ETS, and they also do have waivers based on financial circumstances, so you can tap into that if you're going to go the GRE route. But also just remember that there's now different options for you to take each of the standardized tests. We can talk very quickly about the other application components. So in addition to the undergraduate GPA and the standardized test, they will look at your personal statement, your resume, letters of recommendation, and optional elements. Personal statement is your opportunity to unpack your why. It's usually 2 to 3 pages of a life or work experience. Can't fit all of your life or work experiences into that personal statement, but it's your opportunity to tell them a little bit more about what you will add. Remember, that is a part of the two-prong approach to your application materials. And remember, most law schools don't have interviews, which means what they know about you is from the four walls of what we say of your application. So what you want them to understand about you, what you add, who you are as an individual, as an applicant, would need to be within the application materials. It's an opportunity for you to tell them about your motivations, your interests, your experiences. You can talk about your challenges, but again, I would recommend that you tap into the resources at your institution if you're going to talk about challenges, because sometimes applicants focus too much on the challenge and not the resiliency or the overcoming aspects of that challenge. And that's really what your reviewers want to see, is that you've been able to overcome that challenge. So again, think about all of those opportunities. You do want to make sure you review. Tap into whatever resources you have to get a second pair of eyes just to catch some of the grammatical errors that we don't always see, all of those wonderful aspects. And then another thing is, do make sure you follow instructions. So if they say 2 pages, they mean 2 pages, even if the really good part's at the 2.5 page mark. And then make sure that you are the center of your personal statement, even if other individuals have encouraged us or inspired us to go to law school. Your resumes, again, tap into your resources on campus. The big part about the resume is that sometimes people will say, well, I'm not going to put when I worked at the department store or when I was a barista or when I was a server, because that's not law school related. It really does help your reviewers to get a good picture of what was happening in your life prior to you applying to law school, especially if you don't have a lot of extracurriculars. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what happened to Olivia? Why didn't Olivia participate in this society or this club? And it may be because Olivia needed to go directly from class to work. So again, put all of those experiences on there, only things from undergrad moving forward. So nothing from high school unless that experience spilled over into undergrad. But again, it's an opportunity for you to give your reviewer a picture of what you've been doing professionally, and from an extracurricular standpoint as well. Letters of recommendation. I've only seen one law school in my 15-ish year experience that has not asked for a letter of recommendation. You're going to need at least one. Sometimes it's better, not sometimes. It's usually good to get more than you actually need. Gold star is that you have a professor that can give you a letter of recommendation, because a lot of these admissions committees will have a faculty member that are a part of them, and they want to hear from a person who has sat in the seat that they potentially will sit in for you. But I heard that you all have a lot of students at your institution, and so a GA or a TA is also a really good opportunity for you to have them as your recommenders. If you don't have a professor or a TA or a GA, a current supervisor, former supervisor, as long as they can meet the requirements in the center part of this slide, are they reliable? You don't want to wait on someone to write your letter. Are they well acquainted with your intellectual skills and work habits? Even if that person is a lawyer or a judge, but they don't know about how well you do academically, or they don't know you as a hard worker, don't have them write your letter of recommendation. Make sure that they know you well and can write to those experiences. And then again, make sure that they can write well because your recommenders reflect you. Try to give them plenty of time. Maybe you give them your resume, maybe you give them your personal statement, but try to make it as easy as possible for your recommenders. We do have this wonderful worksheet because we know it can be an intimidating process to ask someone to write a letter of recommendation. So there are some steps that we put together that make that process a little bit easier for you to go through timelines and what you could provide them. And that is accessible through Max Pre-Law. Then when it comes to the other components, optional essays and the addendum, we're going to talk about those a little bit in turn. Optional essays, again, let's start with the title. They're optional. They're not mandatory for the most part. Usually the only required writings that you have to do are the personal statement and the LSAT writing. So just again, think about if you have the time to do an optional essay, does maybe that prompt speak directly to a lived experience or something that you want to talk more about? The topics for optional essays can vary greatly. Some of them say, give me a page out of your autobiography. A lot of them say, why do you want to go to this particular law school? So again, think about it from a strategic lens. Just because you have an opportunity to write about something doesn't necessarily mean that you should. Maybe you said everything you need to say in your personal statement. Again, maybe you don't have the time in which to dedicate to a really good optional essay. So just think about that. And then traditionally, the last part of your application is going to be the addendum. The addendum is an opportunity for you to tie up any loose ends that you think your reviewers may have, because again, remember, they don't usually have an opportunity for you to sit before them and for them to pepper you with questions. For example, let's say if you have a large swing in your LSAT scores, maybe, the first time you took it, you got a 145, and then the second time you took it, you got a 170. You need to explain that. Somebody's going to have a question about the differences in the score. If you have an entire semester that you withdrew from, they're going to want to know what that looks like. So make sure that you do that as well. So anything you think your reviewer may have an additional question about, you'll want to ensure that they have the information that they need, because sometimes we get very creative with our stories. And so we'll make up something that doesn't really exist. And if someone just provided the answer, you can go, oh, that makes perfect sense. So again, the addendum can address more than one thing, but it really should only be 1 to 2 paragraphs. So again, make sure that you're using all the pieces of your application to help you be successful. Sometimes individuals will say, I'm going to put all my eggs into the standardized test basket, or I'm going to put all of my eggs into the undergraduate GPA basket. And it really is about using every piece to your advantage. This is what you will need to do when you are starting to assemble your application pieces. You will need to request transcripts from all the institutions that you've attended, meaning that if you've attended a junior college or a community college, you will need those transcripts. You will need the transcript from your four-year institution. But even if you go on to get a master's degree or another degree, you will need to get those transcripts as well. We've already talked about the credential assembly service. So that one actually has increased a little bit. So remember to check lsac.org for the increase to any of their required resources or to their required application components. They do like to change things periodically to increase it. I guess it's based on inflation, but you'll just want to make sure you're checking that. The FAFSA is actually open right now. So if you're going to apply this cycle, you can complete that FAFSA. It's based on prior year's financial information. So most people already have that if you filed taxes or if you didn't file taxes. So again, you don't have to be admitted into that law school before you complete the FAFSA. Just put the school code on there, and if you're admitted, they'll pull in your application. I'll just talk very briefly about timing. So I want to just hit on this fact that it's important for you to apply early because law school is what we call rolling admissions, meaning that the applications typically open in September. Some of the law schools will hold their application until October, but the majority will open in September. And then from that point on, they start to admit students. And as they continue to admit students, that means more seats are filled up and also money goes out the door. So the earlier the better because you have more opportunities to be admitted. You also have more opportunities to receive money. And especially if it's your stretch school, meaning that you're below the medians, it's more important that you apply early because there's just more flexibility. Here is a game plan for active applicants. So, use your resources on campus. Try to do things as early as you possibly can. Use our resources at AccessLex. Again, everything's free and we're experts in this field. So again, you can tap into not only on-campus resources, but also here at AccessLex. And then control what's controllable. I don't think you all are doing anything opposite of getting the best grades that you possibly can, but also make sure you're preparing for the standardized tests. Another resource that I do want to make you aware of is our coaching opportunities. So again, we know you have all the things that you can tap into while you're on campus, but we know that private loans may be a real factor given the limitations on federal loans. So if you're not aware that they took away the Graduate Plus loan as of July 1st, 2026. And so that means that they increased the one direct unsubsidized loan up to 50,000, but that's all you get from the federal government, and that's usually not enough. For most law schools, there are 188 of the nearly 200 that would be above that $50,000 threshold. So again, we know that you may have questions and you may be looking for options, and we're here to help you for free. You can have as many of these as you would like for free. And again, all roads lead back to Ask Edna. I've covered quite a bit of information with you all in about 30 minutes. I'm going to tell you about a few resources and again, talk about the scholarships that we're offering moving forward. But this is our platform. So the things that we talked about and even more in-depth information is within the Ask Edna platform. It's all free. We don't sell your information. We're not trying to spam you, but it's where all the information that we covered and so much more will be located. You sign up as a pre-law student because that's the part of the journey that you're on right now. Again, we're not going to spam you. We'll email you just to say like, hey, it's a great time to fill out your FAFSA, or hey, are you on track to submit your application? So it's just a reinforcing of what you're already getting on campus. But then again, all this information is within Max Pre-Law. So we do have some other free resources that you can tap into. Our Max by AccessLex program is specifically for law students and then bar success when that time comes. But right before you start law school, our student success information, which is free to you, is also wonderful to tap into. Teaches you things like how to brief a case or what to do before class, what to do after class, those really valuable pieces of information. This is what Max Pre-Law looks in. It's been revamped recently. The scholarship information is right at the top if you need additional details. We also have a law school admission step-by-step guide because we've heard for years, just tell me what to do if I'm 2 years out or if I'm 1 year out. We can help you with that. Even if you are 1 year out, it starts 2 years prior to applying to law school, and you can just make sure that you checked all the boxes prior to the time that you are in your application process. The information again that we covered, you can browse by topic and that you can go to the applying to law school section, but you can browse by timeline and browse by resource type. So let's say you're looking for that letter of recommendation resource that I talked to you about, you can browse by resource type. We also have that scheduled time with an accredited financial counselor for free that you can tap into, and then webinars. So the way that you get entries into our scholarship drawing is by doing lessons, by watching videos, and also attending webinars. So again, you have the live webinar link directly for you to sign up. Here's what that step-by-step guide looks like. So again, you can tap into that because it's easy. We have check boxes. It's okay, I know where I am. I'm checking those boxes. Again, not a ton of detail, but it'll keep you on track. So use your advising resources on campus to make sure that you get the additional details. And then here is how, again, you qualify for the four $15,000 scholarships that we will be doing. We will do that drawing on May the 1st. So again, these are for people who are going into law school starting autumn of 26, but again, we'll do it every year. So if you're going to start in autumn of 27 or 28, and you'll be good. So these are the ways that you do qualify. And that's all I have for you all. So I will stop to see if there are any questions that I can help you with. I know I've gone through a lot of information in a short amount of time. Anything I can help you with?
Students, you can feel free to put your questions in the chat, or you can unmute if you'd like, if you have any questions for Ms. Thorne. So we have a question. Someone is asking, what is the best way to prepare for the LSAT?
So I think that's going to depend on you, right? So we know that there are different learning types. So some people find it very hard to do something like a Kaplan because they often have online courses. So you just want to find what option might be best for you. So if you best learn when you have a live teacher, look for opportunities for that. There also, again, as I mentioned, through LSAC's Law Hub, they do have free tests that you can tap into. You can do practice tests. If you would like more than the free options that they provide you, you do have to pay for Law Hub. But there's also personal tutors that you can tap into. There are pathway programs. We also have a pathway program directory that you can look specifically for programs that help you with the LSAT. So it really, again, it depends upon what your learning style may be. And again, there may be resources on campus, meet with an advisor. Also, it's good if you know that you have a learning difference to really be able to tap into which of those opportunities are going to be best for you. But the other thing that I will say is that you need to give it time. The LSAT and the GRE can be challenging, but they're learnable tests. It's just that you have to give time to it. You can't say, okay, I have 3 weeks until I'm scheduled to take the test and try to cram. That's not how you're going to best score. You want to make sure that you are giving adequate time to studying. And then also, if you're retaking, I know sometimes people say, well, I'm going to take it again next month. You need to think about how best to prepare.
Thank you. And then we also had a question. If a student plans to start law school in the fall of 2026, when do you suggest that they would have their application submitted?
Yeah, so at AccessLex, and most of us in this field say usually by the end of October is a really good sweet spot. And I know we are right here at October the 7th. So really, if the next one is by Thanksgiving, if you're familiar or you celebrate that holiday, but we see that most folks will do it around the January timeframe because that's usually when you all have a little bit of more free time because you're not competing with classes and things like that. But the earlier the better. As I mentioned, applications typically will open in September. So at this point, they've already been reviewing applications for a lot of schools and admitting students, even if they haven't sent out those letters, but from that aspect.
Thank you. And then a student was asking, would you say that not completing the optional essays on law school applications could affect you getting into the program?
So remember, you want to be strategic with that. So if there is an opportunity for you to speak directly to something, but you can definitely think about that as well. So think about if it's strategically best for you, not just because there's an opportunity. If it speaks directly to a lived experience or something that you can speak about, that's a great opportunity for you. Anything else?
I'm not seeing any other questions, but I was wondering if maybe you could give students an overview of, oh, actually, sorry, we do. All right, sorry, that's amazing. But I was wondering if you could give students maybe an overview of the timeline of when they could use certain resources within AccessLex.
Yeah, we start all the way from the time you're interested in law school. So for if you're thinking about if law school might be a great opportunity for you, we have our Explore JD, so without the E, so XPLORE, JD.org is really helping you figure out what law schools are looking for, how you can make sure that you're competitive, how much they give out in scholarships, what percentage. All of those are really good pieces of information as you're just exploring law school. Also, Max Pre-Law tells you about how do you prepare a really good application, some of the things that we've talked about as well. So even from the first time you think that law school might be of interest to you, you can start tapping into law school or law school applicant resources. And again, it's all free. And it's going to be things that you can do at your leisure. But especially once you are getting ready to go into the application process, that's when it's a great opportunity to set up a one-on-one coaching with us.
Thank you so much. Those are such important resources for the students to know. I'm wondering, is there an email maybe that students could reach out to if they have any further
Yes.
questions?
I can put that into the chat. So I'll do, so bear with me because I am the primary person who does this. And I travel as well. But so you don't get lost in my inbox, it's prelaw@accesslex.org.
Thank you so much, Miss Thornton. And students, if you could fill out the survey that we put into the chat and make sure to fill out that Google form and check in if you'd like access to the fair, early access to the fair. And remember that you can pick up your early access pass all of next week. And today's workshop would make you eligible for that. And thank you so much, Miss Thornton. AccessLex is so important for pre-law resources, and students be sure to take advantage of all of the information she had to offer.
Awesome. Have a great day and enjoy your fair.
Thank you. Enjoy your fair, and thank you so much for joining us while you're